I don't know about you. There's certain teams, and this applies to all the sports, that are just a little bit more enjoyable to talk about. Either they're more prone to implosion, which makes an interesting conversation, or underachievement, or they're incredibly talented and they're fun to watch, or maybe a little bit of both. One of my favorite teams to talk about the last couple of years is absolutely the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah.
I love talking about the Browns.
You know why? It's because they have interesting characters. And it starts with Baker Mayfield, who probably is overexposed to an extent, but who cares? I mean, it's 2021 and really 2018, 19 when it started, but he's very visible. Like, you see him, you can relate to him in a sense. He's got that like old school cockiness that, the high school quarterback, whether it be, like, I'm trying to think of a movie from back in the day where the quarterback was just cocky.
The Program.
Yeah, like The Program or
great movie.
Blue Chips, any of those
all
things.
those are good.
Right?
Blue Chips was basketball, though.
I mean, not Blue Chips. What was the one?
Friday Night Lights?
Yeah, Friday Night Lights. So they had blue uniforms. But when you think about, like, that quarterback, that's Baker Mayfield.
Yeah.
He's Hollywood, you know what I mean? And so he's interesting, and he's gotten good to the point where he can lead his team to the postseason. I'm not saying he's an elite top 5 quarterback, but he's just good, and he's fun to watch. And then you throw in the talent around him from Odell and Landry and
Higgins,
Joku.
Pretty good too.
Yep,
Rashard Higgins.
Rashard Higgins is there. Yeah, exactly. You
Pretty
forget
good.
about him. They got the defensive players as well who are interesting, and it's been drama. Like, there's been so much drama around the team, and we're hitting them at their rising up point, right? At some point, every team just figures it out. And it's been a long time for Cleveland Browns fans, but they're figuring it out. And so it's happening right in front of our eyes, like this ascension. And it makes it fun to follow. And because none of those guys feel like jerks, you know what I mean? It's like you want to root for them, even if you're not a Cleveland Brown fan.
Yeah, and listen, their tortured history absolutely plays a role in why I enjoy talking about them and why they're such an interesting story. Listen, there's a lot of teams every year that go 11-5 in the NFL, but there's not a lot of teams that go 11-5 and exercise a slew of demons in the process. They won at Pittsburgh for the first time, and I forget how long, but that was a playoff game. They hung 28 points on them in the first quarter. Now, they could have won that game at Arrowhead. They lost by 5 points, I want to say, to the Chiefs, and I think it was 5 points in the divisional matchup. You mentioned some of their skill guys. What about the offensive line with Conklin, who they signed the year before from Tennessee? Wills is a very good draft pick so far. They've got the runners. They've got the charisma. Stefanski year 2. They've got this fan base that's dying. Just that is such an ardent, there's fan bases who are supportive, and then there's fan bases who are supportive, but also incredibly informed. And that's them.
Yes.
Like, those fans know football. Think about all the draft nights. And we're going to have one of, Brady Quinn's going to join us later. Brady Quinn for a minute. And he looked the part. The chiseled jaw. He's yoked.
Right.
Has a good arm. Played at Notre Dame. Looks the part. Didn't work out for him with the, not really his fault, I'm saying, but for a multitude of reasons didn't work out. Much like it didn't work out with, Brandon Weeden and Tim Couch and all these other quarterbacks that have been there. There's just myriad issues from ownership to scouting to coaching, disconnect. It's been a roller coaster with a lot more downs than ups. And I really, you say you watch sports because you enjoy greatness. I watch sports for that as well. But I truly enjoy seeing, these downtrodden situations turn.
Yeah.
I do. Whether even like were they still the Devil Rays?
Tampa.
Yes, they were. I think they were still the Devil Rays. But when Tampa went to the World Series in 08, when the Cardinals went to the Super Bowl, like to see the Browns go into a playoff game at Heinz Field and score 28 points in the first quarter, like that's what I'm here for.
Yeah.
I love that, and hopefully one of these days I'll have it with my teams, the Jets and the Knicks. But maybe that's why I relate to this, because most of my fandom is of torment.
Yeah, is of
torture. Torment.
When are we going to when's it finally going to happen?
I relate to it. I'm rooting for it.
In some ways, because even though it's not your team, you just kind of understand the joy that these fans have to be feeling right now.
Yes, correct. I don't think that's, first of all, I think it's very measured. I think when you hear, we're going to play something from OBJ, you're like, what is he going to say?
Yeah, exactly.
That's a very sensible, very mature take. I don't think it's off base.
That's the word I was going to use. It sounds very mature.
It does. And OBJ's guy, he's got He's got to find his role. He's got to squeeze him properly because they're going to run the ball 25 times a game, minimally. And in the rain, and they had some really bad weather a year ago. We talked about that, especially early when Baker was a bit skittish, right?
Yep.
They might run it 30, 35 times. Maybe not quite like Tennessee, but not that short of what Tennessee does on certain Sundays against weak defensive fronts. They can run the hell out of it. So there's going to be days where Odell's running a lot of empty routes. And when we saw that with the Giants, you know what we saw?
Yeah.
We saw a lot of this. We saw a lot of, banging his head. We saw a lot of woofing, a lot of barking. If he pulls that, he can pull the whole team down with him, but I don't think he will.
No, I don't think he will either. And I look at their schedule, and while they start with the Kansas City Chiefs in Kansas City, which is not fun.
No. Kansas City didn't look that great in the Super Bowl.
True. But I feel like Pat Mahomes learned a lot about himself, and he's going to be even better than he has been, not trying to force anything. But whatever, Kansas City is what it is. But then it's the Texans and the Bears and the Vikings and the Chargers and Arizona and in Denver. So it's kind of like they're all, after the first one, winnable games.
They should have 4 wins early.
That's right. And so if that happens and, the pressure of the expectation gets dampened a little bit. So it's like people kind of realize that, man, this team is as good, even if it's superficial because they've won some games, this team is as good as advertised. It just makes it so much easier to continue to fulfill that. But if they get off to a bad start, lose some games they're not supposed to, then all of a sudden it's like, oh, here we go again. And that's the challenge. That's the challenge I want to see in this Browns team, because things go wrong all the time for every team every year, at least in some capacity. And so when the Browns hit adversity, how do they respond? Because last year, they really didn't hit a lot of adversity. They did well. Baker, obviously, was not skittish, but whatever. He was a little off early on in the season.
Well, didn't they get drilled in week 1? Didn't they lose 30-7 or 30? Like they got crushed. No, it wasn't Pittsburgh.
Baltimore, maybe?
Yeah, so they were the Ravens. They got killed, right?
38-6.
38-6.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, you're right. But then they kind of stabilized themselves, and they won 4 in a row. And so all of a sudden, it felt like, all right, this Browns team could be good. And then they obviously were good because they made the postseason and then got to the playoffs, losing to the Kansas City Chiefs. And what was not a blowout game. I mean, they lost by 5 to the Kansas City Chiefs in the postseason, and they held Kansas City to 22 points. So this Browns team is well built on both sides of the ball. So the expectation is what's gotten really high. How they live up to it, and do they have the players to live up to it? That's the question we'll find out.
That's the fascinating part of this, because that you can't quantify it until you actually see it develop. Right. But to me, I think it's time for a golf analogy. I've been off for a week or so. I was in yesterday. But to me, the Browns, I'm going to compare it to, say, like even the Warriors. Like, it doesn't have to be a football team, right? But the Warriors, who are going to reload this season, obviously, let's say they get Bradley Beal, or they get Damian Lillard, or they don't, but Clay's back and they still start 2-5.
Yeah.
There'll be nothing to worry about.
No.
Nothing, because you rely on the DNA of what you've already seen, who they are as an organization. And it's like the golfer who maybe gets a little bit of a crooked number early, instead of saying, oh, geez, I'm going to throw up a high number. He's like, I just got to stabilize this, come back with a few birdies. And they do.
Yes.
Whereas with the Browns, if the Browns were a golfer, they're like you and I, where, I don't know about you, but like I get to now I've got the watch, so it's all big, but I start getting on like the 6th hole. I might write like the number next to the 6. I'm like, all right, so I got a 5 and a 6. I got 11 plus, double book. Like I'll look halfway through my front line. I'll see like a 30, whatever the number is. All right, if I do this, I can get a 45 on the front.
Yeah, I know what
that's
you mean.
a defeatist way of looking. Like that's
right.
Expecting the worst.
That's right.
And that's how the Browns fans, that's what they're conditioned to do, because that's what they've been subjected to. I don't think that plagues this team this year.
No.
Maybe I'm investing too much, but I think I know they're better than Pittsburgh. I think they're better than the Ravens, and I know they're better than the Bengals this year. I think they're the best team in the North.
I mean, I do. I'm probably still going to hold the Ravens.
Why?
Because the Ravens have an elite player at quarterback. He's different.
He was worse. He was 32nd in passing?
True, but
did you know that?
But he rushed for 1,000 yards.
Okay, 32nd in passing.
And the team rushed for, I think, 3,000, whatever it was. They dominate on the ground, which wins football games because it controls time possession, it controls field position. Their defense was really good.
They lost Judon.
They did lose Judon. So, I mean, they're good.
I don't know if they're better than the Browns.
I'm going to hold on.
Offensive line?
I'm going to hold on to them a little. They did lose. They lost a couple of
I think I'd like the Browns to win this division. I'm not saying they're going to run away with it.
We'll see.
Well, obviously, but it's July. I got to say something now. That's what I think now.
It makes it an interesting division because you don't know. I mean, could Big Ben respond and be great next year?
He could. Yeah, I wouldn't rule that. A lot of people. It's funny you say that. A lot of people have actually ruled that out.
That he can't respond and
have you ruled that out?
I haven't because one, he looks good. Looks like he's in the best shape he's been in a while. Which I mean, I don't want to say he's
Does
been. Well, he
lost. Looks like he hasn't been in good shape in 10 years.
He lost. Well, that's the point. He hasn't been. And he's looked heavy. Remember some of these off-season photos we see of him?
With the beard. He looked like he was 55 years old, retired.
You've been hunting in the woods for
come on, dude, you're a quarterback. Work out.
Like 4 months. But this year he came to camp. He actually looked in good shape.
He looked functional. I'm with you on that.
And so I think maybe he took it seriously this offseason. I feel like for a while he's been that guy who's just, he knows it's going to be okay because he's got such great talent around him. His offensive line was good. Their defense has always been, at least very serviceable. They never have lost. They've never had a losing season with him. Did they? Maybe his first year. No,
that's first year.
He's never had a losing season. So it's almost like
Tomlin's never had a losing season.
But wasn't he one before?
I don't think Big Ben's ever had a losing season.
Yeah,
I'll check for you.
You might be right, but whatever. So my point is, even if he's only had one, it's in his mind. He's like, it's going to be all right once I get there. And for the first time, I felt like Big Ben came into this offseason or went into the offseason like, I need to get better and I need to get in good shape. We don't know what the offensive line is going to be like. There's an urgency to win again if we can. We know the defense is going to be good. Offensively, we have some skill position players. We just got Najee Harris. It all feels like it's coming together. The one X factor would be Big Ben, and that's something you would never say about Ben Roethlisberger, is that he was going to be the X factor because he was so steady. But after last season, then you kind of have to start putting that into the equation. What is Big Ben going to look like, and how's he going to play? I feel like he took this offseason with a lot of seriousness.
He better. And he's hanging on by a thread, no?
Well, I mean, last year, maybe.
I don't see him. You see him playing in 2 more years?
No.
That's what I'm saying. You're kind of hanging on a thread.
Yeah, I think talking about his career.
He's hanging by a thread.
Could this be his last year? With that being said, he won 12 games last year.
I understand that.
You know what I mean?
So, and he had they couldn't get the short yardage when they needed. He couldn't run the ball. He actually had a losing season. Their last losing season as a franchise was the year before he came.
Yes.
Which is what I thought, 03. But he had a personal losing record in 06. He missed a game. He went 7-8. I guess they won the game, obviously, that he didn't play. So they finished at 500 as a team. Everything else has been, he's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 double-digit win seasons, 2 of which are 12, a 13-0, obviously, in 04 as a rookie. And he's won a ton. I mean, he's 156 and 74 and 1.
Yeah. No, he had 2 years with Cowher. That's what I couldn't remember.